Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Uncover Hidden Costs in Your Service Process. So nice to have everybody here. Thanks for joining us today. Before we jump in, just a quick note. You can go ahead and put your questions in the chat as we go along. We built in a little bit of time at the end of the presentation for any questions that come in while we're chatting. So you can go ahead and put them in whenever you have them and whenever they come up. I'm going to get started with a little intro into Vicasso, who we are and what we do here. So Vicasso has been a Salesforce partner for about 15 years now. Our primary focus is building case management apps to help customer service teams that are using Salesforce be more efficient, improve metrics, so things like KPIs, initial response time, case handle time, things like that. And most importantly, since we all know that customer service is expensive, our apps help reduce your service costs. So that's a huge piece of what we're here to talk about today, and a lot about what we've been talking about on social media and things like that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce myself first. I am Sam Humes. I am Demand Generation Manager here at Vicasso, a proud member of our marketing team. I have been with Vicasso for about a year now, and in the marketing space for a little under a decade. And I am here with Sean, who is our principal solution consultant at Vicasso. So Sean, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I've been with Vicasso across several different roles in two different departments, coming up on 6 years at this point. I spent 10 years as a customer support agent and manager, and now as principal solution consultant for Vicasso. Part of my role here is to help our customers understand where these hidden costs are in their use of Service Cloud and figure out how we can get them out from underpaying people to do repetitive and manual processes.
Great. And it's great to have you here. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So first, let's get started with a brief overview of what we're going to cover in today's presentation. So as Sean kind of mentioned, we're here to talk about hidden costs. And in order to uncover those hidden costs, we're going to show you how to develop something called an impact analysis. But what is an impact analysis? Why is it useful? Well, an impact analysis is something that's typically used in project management, sometimes business planning or financial planning. And its primary function is to evaluate the potential consequences or impact of action or inaction. So in this case in particular, we're going to use an impact analysis to assign a cost to inaction. So we're basically going to calculate how much money you're wasting annually not having a solution in place for two administrative tasks that your support team and your support agents are likely struggling with or dealing with on their own. So jumping right in, for the first one, we're going to walk you through how to determine how much time and money you're spending on having your support agents sort through files related lists to find the file they need to resolve a case or respond to a customer. So keeping in mind that if you're using Salesforce for service, with each communication your agent has with the customer, files are getting attached to that case from the customer's email signature. So if they have, for instance, logos or social media icons in their email signature, those are going to start cluttering up your files related lists, especially if you're having a lot of back and forth with that customer. So to get started, to kind of show you how this issue looks from an agent standpoint, we're going to have Sean do a little role play. So Sean is going to be our support agent in this case, and we're going to say a case just arrived in his queue this morning. Using Salesforce out of the box, we're going to see how much time it's going to take Sean to find the file he needs to respond to this customer in a list of files related to this case. We will be timing this so that we can put an accurate timestamp to associate with the task. So Sean, if you want to take it away, and let's walk through this together.
All right, so we got a minute on the clock, and what we're going to look for as a support agent, we got a new case open this morning, and we got a picture of the TV that seems to be having a problem. As a support agent, I have to go find that picture on a related list. It arrived at 11:58 a.m. today, and as we jump over to our related list, we're going to start seeing there's more than just an attached picture from the customer, and we're going to open up the related list and have to start sorting through everything that's on this related list to find the one thing maybe 2 that the customer sent over. So as I start to scroll down, a lot has happened. The timestamp or last modified date doesn't immediately tell me what I need. There's been 4 emails back and forth on this case, and already there's 64 items, and we need to find just the 1 or 2 that we need. Customers don't typically do nice things like label their pictures properly, so I have to start clicking in, figuring out which of these things is relevant content from a customer. A Facebook icon probably isn't. And every time I have to wait for a page to load, wait for another image to render, this delays my ability as a support agent to get, oh, there we go. So there's one useful thing. Can't quite tell what's going on, but already I've spent a minute and trying to figure out what this customer sent over. I even know what I'm looking for, but on this list of 64 items, it still takes a minute. Maybe it takes 2 minutes. Maybe it takes longer. We've encountered some customers who have agents spending 3.5 hours per week trying to figure out what this content looks like as a customer sends it over. And in order to find that on a related list and then jump back over to the case record where I can then email the customer knowing what's going on, it's going to take a minute, maybe 2, maybe more every time you have to do this for a particular case record. So let's jump back over to the slides and take a look at how we figure out the impact of this for your team overall.
Yeah, so what we have here is now that we have that timestamp, we can look at the impact analysis formula. So with this particular formula, we're trying to solve for Z, which is how much money annually you're spending to have your support agents walk through this process of finding files. So Sean, do you want to walk us through a little bit of the impact analysis formula?
Sure. So what we just looked at is finding A. It's the amount of time it actually takes to find those files on a related list. Understanding what this looks like for your team, for your support agents, a ride along and a stopwatch is really a great way to go about this. See how many times they have to deal with this on a daily basis, see how long it really takes them. We've had this conversation with a lot of customers, and understanding where these hidden costs are happening. You're already paying people to deal with this in the way that they're doing it currently. Ideally, you want to make sure that your team can get out from under some of these costs. The way we're going to look at the overall impact is number of working days per year, number of support agents, and your average hourly rate across your team. Those are the remaining inputs once we know the time it takes and the number of times per day. And let's jump to the next slide. We have an example here. It really walks us through what's the impact of this problem. So based on the example we just saw, I ran past a minute pretty quickly, and that was only with 60 files, and I knew what I'm looking for. This can take a lot longer every time a support agent has to find those files. So on a team of 560 support agents, this is actually pretty closely aligned with a real customer metric that we ran as our headline for Dreamforce this year. This is $500,000 plus in labor costs just to find the images on a related list in Service Cloud.
Yeah, this is a huge cost. So let's say I am the support manager of Pierce Global Media, and I've arrived at this number. So I know I'm spending a little over $500,000, and I see a huge opportunity to save some budget here moving forward into the next year. So what kind of options do we have for reducing that number or even fully removing the cost?
All right. So as we jump back over to the demo org, we're going to look at a second example. It's going to look very similar. TV's not working, but on the page layout, we see a question. Do you need these files? Our FileSlayer solution on the App Exchange will identify, here's all of these extra things that probably aren't actually relevant to your case. And there's 2 ways to handle this. When I hit remove, it gets rid of this Facebook icon. On this case, it gets rid of that Facebook icon from all the other cases in the org, and it marks it for preemptive removal going forward. So the next time your customer emails you another copy of that Facebook icon, it's going to get rid of that too, and it'll never show up and clutter up that related list in your org again. So your support agents have an opportunity to clean up their own workspace, but also help each other out. In the long run, you won't have to deal with all this clutter. You'll just have a related list that has content that is relevant rather than a bunch of stuff that isn't. So the second option for how FileSlayer can really eliminate the time spent on this problem is we're going to actually enable Slaybot. Slaybot is the mascot and workhorse for the FileSlayer solution, and it's a fully automated option to help remove these things. Slaybot knows that a Facebook icon is a Facebook icon. And as soon as we have a chance to enable Slaybot, we're going to hit save, and we're going to go back over to this page layout. So as a support agent, when I get into the case that I need to work on, as soon as the page loads, Slaybot's going to assess what's there and get rid of the stuff that isn't relevant. And as a support agent, I don't have to spend any time at all being able to find just the things that I need. So again, page load times, every time you can avoid going to a related list, every time you can avoid another save, it helps your team be more efficient. So as we start to see Slaybot getting rid of these extra things, the agent doesn't have to do anything at all. And what this does is it brings just the relevant information to the forefront more quickly, and it gets rid of the stuff that doesn't need to be there. So a second item here that is another solution on the AppExchange called Email to Case Premium. And we can see here, here's the most recent comment from the customer, but it also shows us a little bit of a preview here. We can see what all these different images look like. And once FileSlayer gets rid of the stuff that we don't need, we can see with 0 clicks entirely that everything you need is right here. When I hit refresh, it'll actually get rid of all of these now that Slaybot has cleaned it up. But you can see right here, without going to a related list, without clicking to get rid of these images, you can actually see everything you need to in effectively 0 seconds, rather than starting the process of the files related list hunt to begin with.
Wow, so that's a huge time saver. And Sean, how many files have you seen? Like, what is the largest amount of files that you've seen on a related list with our customers?
So the customer that we worked with earlier this year that had 3.5 hours per person per week in time savings, they were seeing on average 300 to 500 files on a related list on every case.
Wow, so that's a huge time suck, a huge cost for the team. So let's talk a little bit now about the solution cost and time to value versus how much they might be wasting with this manual task.
All right, so as we saw before, we figured out that this is over $500,000 in labor being spent to have people scroll on a related list. They need to find the needle in the haystack, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things that a customer sent over amidst a few hundred that they really don't need. So on a team of 560, once we bring FileSlayer into the mix, even with some added licenses for a management team and some admins to help with some back-end cleanup, 600 licenses of FileSlayer at $8 per user per month lands us at $57,600. So this solution gets about a little less than $500,000, $470,000 right back in the, no need to pay people to scroll through related lists. And it also makes it a little easier for agents to, find what they need. It's a better agent experience, and they can focus on customers instead of having to search for this. And as the manager, as the company, you actually are able to redirect those resources into other areas that you need.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge savings. And if you're like me and you hate math, we did develop a handy dandy calculator. So you don't even need to necessarily plug these numbers into that impact analysis formula. So we'll pop this link into the chat for you to check out. Essentially, you can move around the little levers for these different variables to put in the information about your specific business, your specific service process, and it will deliver both a monthly and annual cost to the task, which is pretty cool. So after the live stream, or if you're watching at a later time, you can go ahead and plug your own numbers in, see what you come up with after you do that ride along with your support agent. And we would love to hear what your numbers end up being or chat them through. Yep. So let's talk, now that we've seen this, let's talk about the second manual task that's costing your support team time and money. So we're calling this case prioritization, but more simply put, it's the process of your agents deciding what case to work on next. So when they come in the morning, or simply moving from one case to the next, that time of decision. So remember, for the sake of our formula, we're looking for those A and B variables, which is the time it takes agents to make this decision and how many cases they each touch per day. So those are the variables you have to come up with. So Sean, I'm going to have you jump back into your role playing as our support agent for the day, and we will time you again. But this time, let's look at what the case prioritization process looks like for support agents with Salesforce out of the box.
All right. So having been a support agent, when I finish working on the case in front of me, there's always a next case. But this is really one of my favorite areas to help customers see some of the inefficiencies that they're able to reclaim for their team. If I'm a support agent, I have to make a call about what case do I work on next. What we usually hear from customers, the answer is almost entirely consistent. There's some slight variability, but here's what it looks like. As a support agent, I'm going to go to a cases list view. Here's cases that I own. I've got 12 cases here. There's various considerations around who's the account. Maybe there's a platinum versus a standard support SLA. What's the status? What's the priority? What's the next step? Am I waiting on the customer to respond, or is this something that I need to do? I also have to take a look at not just the cases I own. I'm a member of maybe 1 or 2 different queues. There's new cases coming in on all the time. Here again, I have to figure out there's 6 new cases. I'm responsible for any and all of these possibly. Here's a bunch of different considerations. Again, high priority, new cases. This one's on hold. I don't really know why. And across 2 different list views, I've got to compare values on at least 3 to 6 different fields. I might have 2 or 3 cases that actually match the criteria for what I should work on next. And then I've got to start opening up cases, read the cases, read the email message records. The midpoint of what we hear over and over from our customers is that it takes anywhere between 2 to 3 minutes, and this decision has to be made 20 to 40 times a day. So even if we go at kind of the midpoint, take 2 minutes, and this has to make a decision. Your agent has to make a decision 30 times a day. It might be the same case a few times back and forth. It might be just one case touch, but that's an hour of time. 2 minutes to make a decision 30 times a day means your handle time is being inflated by 12%, 12.5% just in the transit time on average between cases. So when I'm looking at this for an impact, it's not just the amount of time being spent on this. And again, sit down with your team, have them walk you through how they're doing this. They're going to tell you probably something very similar to what we just saw here, but this is taking 2 to 3 minutes, maybe more. Figure out if they're doing it the same way. That's another big issue, is cherry picking. If I'm a support agent, maybe I've been working with Oscar, but last time I talked to Art was a little bit of a challenge to deal with. So I'm going to keep on working with Oscar, even though Art needs a platinum SLA 1 hour response time. The support agent doesn't need to be making these considerations. As a support leader, you have to be able to get your agents to the next case as quickly as possible. And the way that you're likely having them do that right now has a lot of room for improvement.
Okay, so say I'm a support leader. We've got the timestamp for what this process looks like. So here's just a quick reminder of what the impact analysis formula is again, but the only thing that's changed here is that A is now the average minutes spent deciding what case to work on next. So let's put this into an example again. So let's look at Waystar Royco. Shout out to all you Succession fans out there. Their support team is a bit smaller, and their leadership has determined that it takes agents, like you said, roughly 2 minutes clicking around to find what case they're going to work on next. So do you want to walk us through, similar to the last example, how we got to this Z variable?
Sure. So compared to the last team, this team is 1/10 of the size, but the overall impact of this on a per agent basis, this ends up being close to $300,000 a year to have people find the next case the way that most people are typically reporting that they do so. It's a subjective decision. You don't need to have agents making these choices over and over. And if you're looking for a really fast way to expand the bandwidth and really get your team focused on customer care and not having to go searching for work, this is a great way to really wipe out a big chunk of how they're working on a daily basis and get them a lot of their time back.
So that's a big number. What kind of solutions are we looking at to solve this issue and recover that $30K a year?
All right. So as a support agent, I'm back on my demo org, and in the situation here, I'm done working on this case. I'm a support agent who has to go find what case I should work on next. It's as simple as going to the case flags utility bar and clicking on the next case. So in about 4 seconds and 2 clicks, I've arrived at the case that needs my attention the most. So this accounts for all of the different considerations. You can have different accounts, different response time expectations, different priorities. All of these things can be made as considerations, but if you're looking for a problem that is almost entirely fixable, this decision around what case do I work on next, we can wipe out that transit time almost completely. So what this effectively, yep. So what this looks like here is if I figure out the next case, I've worked on this one now, what do I have to do next? Again, I don't have to go to the next list view and find the next one. It's just right here for me. And my cases, anywhere where I'm a member of a queue, even a conflated view, you can avoid a list view altogether and still see all the different cases across those list views. As a support agent, I can rely on case flags to bring me right to the next case over and over just in time. So this is going to be a really fast way to get that decision taken care of, and it doesn't require me as a support agent to make any of those subjective considerations.
All right, so let's look at a little bit of the breakdown of the cost versus how much we know that we're spending here at Waystar Royco.
All right, so again, as we said, a team of 50, this is almost $300,000 in impact of how you're actually spending money to pay people to do this work the current way. If we add 10 licenses for managers and Salesforce admins again, this is a case flags at $15 per user per month. We're able to take care of this problem for less than $11,000, which means the savings here is $280,000. And again, this is something that can be put in place very quickly. Get your team 10 or 15% of their time back. Let them focus on customer care. Let them take a breath and actually sit and build a relationship with a customer instead of just rushing to the next case. And it also eliminates a lot of the variables around the response times and subjectivity. So there's some additional considerations here beyond just the cost savings. One of the things we hear a lot is support agents cherry picking the cases they want to work on. A lot of people come to us looking for ways to help meet response time SLAs. If you have customers writing in to you saying, any update on this? I haven't heard back. What's the status of this? Whether you're meeting your SLAs or not, that tells us that your customers want to hear from you sooner. So this is a way to help get your agents in front of the right people in time. Another thing, just generally speaking, as we're looking at all these different ways to put information in front of your agents as quickly and completely as possible without any of the rest of the clutter, every time we looked at that duplicate case notification on the screen there, that's another area where agents may not have full visibility into all of the happenings around an issue. So if there's 10% of your cases that are duplicates, that's 10% of effort that could be being wasted. So all of the focus on the problems that we solve really is how do we make sure that agents have as complete of a view of all of the information they need to help customers as quickly as possible. And this is going to do a lot to not only help with customer satisfaction, lifetime account value, but really, what does this look like from an agent standpoint? This is a big time saver, but it's also a quality of life consideration. So after as many years as I spent in support, we really take it personally to try and make sure that a support agent has the opportunity to have a good user experience and be able to focus on customers instead of having to go search for information on their own.
Yeah, and I think we say it a lot that a happy customer service agent makes for happier customer service experiences. And I think that's huge, especially considering customer churn and the cost of that. It's roughly 5 to 25 times more expensive to replace a customer than to retain an existing one. So we're talking about even more savings on top of our impact formula calculation.
Yep, there's a lot of good research in the recent years showing that customer experience investment helps to drive top line revenue. So, this is a big area where it may seem that any additional cost to a support org is a tough sell sometimes, but these really do have strong ROI, both in terms of the actual numbers, but driving customer experience through the right kind of technology enablement for a support team makes a big difference for the relationship and for the account value overall.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so to wrap up a little bit here, I wanted to circle back one more time to our formula because it's really useful when you're trying to develop an impact analysis for really any manual or administrative task your support agents are currently handling. So you can pause the video, screenshot this for future use. And just keep in mind that Picasso's apps for Salesforce can really help remove a lot of these manual efforts involved in your support process. You've gotten a little teaser, a taste of a few of them, and it can save you a ton of money in the long run. So go ahead, steal this formula. Let us know how you use it. We love to hear from you, and assign costs to these hurdles for your support agents. There's a lot of opportunity for savings here.
I think that's the big takeaway for me, is that these aren't additional costs that we're talking about when you're looking at an AppExchange solution. These impact analysis costs, these are the costs that are already going out the door. This is wasted labor. This is customer experience risk. So figuring out how do you want to enable support agents to really be more effective and deliver more value to your customers and to your company, this is a problem that's correctable, and we don't want to have you go through this any longer than you have to. So we're happy to help.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And speaking of, we can now go ahead and answer any questions that came into the chat, if there was any. Let's see what we've got in here. So it looks like there was one question about file size and sorting. Do you want to jump on that, Sean?
Sure. So the file size limits for how FileSlayer is assessing and making those considerations about what might not be needed, nothing over 100K is actually ever going to be considered by FileSlayer. So what we're looking for is those smaller social media icons, all of the stuff that a corporate IT department might put on an email signature in a B2B scenario. So a lot of the larger stuff, the relevant content from customers, it probably isn't even going to meet that threshold for size. So the larger stuff doesn't get looked at all. The smaller stuff, the clutter that actually happens, is what we're really focused on.
Great. Let's see if anything else came through. All right, looks like there's no other questions for now. Feel free to hit us up. I put our emails, both me and Sean, here, so you can feel free to reach out to us if you come up with anything, or you again want to talk through any of these customer service challenges. We love to hear from customers, prospects, anyone interested in ways to improve efficiency in your support process and save money. And definitely let us know what calculations you came up with using our impact analysis calculators. And remember, those links are in the chat for you to use. We'd love to hear from you. And just a big thank you to everyone for joining us. And thank you, Sean, for all the useful information and walking us through all of this. This was great.
Well, thanks for hosting. I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Thanks, everyone.